The concept of a single sentence making a narcissist fear you forever, often attributed to Carl Jung, is more of a popular psychology trope than a direct quote from Jung's work. However, it aligns with Jungian ideas about confronting the ego and shadow, which can be particularly unsettling for narcissistic personalities who rely on an inflated self-image. Let's break this down in detail, exploring the psychological mechanisms, Jung's relevant theories, and why such a sentence might have a profound effect on a narcissist. Understanding narcissism. Narcissism, in psychological terms, refers to a personality trait or disorder characterized by grandiosity, a need for admiration, and a lack of empathy. Narcissists often construct a false self, a grandiose persona, that masks deep insecurities. Their ego is fragile, heavily dependent on external validation, and resistant to criticism or exposure. Any challenge to this false self can provoke intense fear, shame, or rage, as it threatens their carefully curated identity. Carl Jung's relevant concepts. Carl Jung, a Swiss psychiatrist and founder of analytical psychology, didn't explicitly write about narcissism as it's understood in modern psychology, for example, narcissistic personality disorder in the DSM. However, his concepts of the ego, persona, and shadow provide a framework for understanding why a narcissist might fear a particular statement. Here's how these apply. Ego. The ego is the conscious sense of self. For narcissists, the ego is overly inflated, but brittle, as it's built on a false narrative of superiority rather than authentic self-awareness. Persona. The persona is the social mask one presents to the world. Narcissists craft a persona of perfection, competence, or charm to garner admiration and avoid vulnerability. Shadow. The shadow contains repressed or hidden aspects of the personality traits, fears, or insecurities one denies. For a narcissist, the shadow includes their insecurities, shame, or flaws they refuse to acknowledge. Jung emphasized the importance of integrating the shadow to achieve psychological wholeness, individuation. Confronting a narcissist with their shadow exposing their insecurities or contradictions can be deeply threatening, as it undermines their ego and persona. The one-sentence concept. The idea of a single sentence causing a narcissist to fear you forever likely stems from pop psychology content, often shared on platforms like YouTube or social media, rather than a direct Jungian quote. Such a sentence would theoretically work by piercing the narcissist's defenses, exposing their shadow, and threatening their sense of control or superiority. The fear arises not from physical intimidation but from the existential threat to their identity. While no universal sentence exists, an effective one would likely expose their false self, highlight the discrepancy between their grandiose persona and their true behavior or feelings, undermine their control. Narcissists thrive on manipulating others' perceptions. A sentence that reveals you see through their facade strips away this power. Resist their manipulation. Narcissists fear those who are emotionally or psychologically untouchable, as they cannot be controlled or gaslit. Examples of such a sentence. A sentence that could unsettle a narcissist might be something like, "I see through your act, and your need for control only reveals how insecure you truly are." Here's why this works. Exposes the facade. It directly calls out the narcissist's persona as an act, challenging their grandiose self-image. Points to the shadow. Mentioning insecurity forces them to confront the repressed vulnerabilities in their shadow. Establishes your strength. By calmly stating you see through them, you position yourself as immune to their manipulation, which is terrifying to a narcissist who relies on control. Another example could be, "Your need to always be right just shows how much you fear being seen as human." This similarly targets their insecurity while framing their behavior as a defense mechanism, which can feel like an existential attack. Why it instills fear forever. Narcissists fear exposure because it risks narcissistic injury, a profound wound to their ego when their false self is challenged. A well-crafted sentence can linger because it plants a seed of doubt. The narcissist may obsess over the fact that someone sees their flaws, threatening their self-narrative. It disrupts their power dynamic. Narcissists rely on others' compliance or admiration. Someone who sees through them becomes a threat they cannot easily neutralize. It's unforgettable. A concise, piercing statement can stick in their mind, especially if it comes from someone they perceive as credible or authoritative. The forever aspect is hyperbolic but reflects the lasting impact of someone who challenges their control. Narcissists may avoid or obsess over such a person, fearing further exposure. Jung's perspective on confronting the ego. Jung's work suggests that true psychological growth involves confronting and integrating the shadow, which narcissists resist. In The Archetypes and the Collective Unconscious, Jung writes, "The shadow is a moral problem that challenges the whole ego personality, for no one can become conscious of the shadow without considerable moral effort. For a narcissist, who avoids this effort, a sentence that forces shadow awareness is deeply unsettling." Jung also noted that individuals who refuse to face their shadow project it onto others, blaming them for their own flaws. A sentence that mirrors the narcissist's projection back at them, like calling out their insecurity, can feel like a psychological ambush, as it bypasses their defenses. Practical considerations. While the idea of a single sentence is compelling, its effectiveness depends on delivery. A calm, confident tone is key. Narcissists are less likely to dismiss someone who appears self-assured and unaffected by their tactics. Context. The sentence must be relevant to the narcissist's specific behaviors or insecurities to hit home. Your boundaries. After delivering such a statement, maintaining emotional distance is crucial, as narcissists may retaliate with rage, gaslighting, or attempts to reassert control. Limitations and risks. No universal sentence. Narcissists vary in their triggers and defenses. What unsettles one may not affect another. Potential for escalation. Confronting a narcissist can provoke narcissistic rage or vindictive behavior, especially if they feel publicly humiliated. Not to Jungian quote, "The attribution to Jung is likely a modern embellishment." His work focuses on self-awareness, not interpersonal power plays. Alternative approaches. Rather than seeking a single devastating sentence, consider Jung's broader advice. Focus on your own psychological growth and boundaries. Narcissists lose power over those who refuse to engage in their games. Strategies include grey rocking. Be emotionally unresponsive to deprive them of attention. Setting boundaries. Clearly define what you will and won't tolerate. Self-integration. Work on your own shadow, as Jung advocated, to become immune to manipulation. Conclusion. The notion of one sentence to make a narcissist fear you forever is a catchy but oversimplified idea, loosely tied to Jung's concepts of ego and shadow. While no such sentence is universally effective, a statement that calmly exposes a narcissist's insecurities or false self can be profoundly unsettling, as it threatens their fragile identity. However, the real power lies in maintaining your own psychological strength and boundaries, aligning with Jung's emphasis on individuation and self-awareness.